So we finally got chapter 74 of Boruto, and it's really just a setup chapter, and that really isn't a bad thing. Now, we didn't really get any direct new information, as in they didn't really tell us anything new, but based on some conversations the characters had, we can derive some pretty cool theories as it relates to Eida's origins, and also some power scaling mechanic there, because we also had a fight between Daemon and Kawaki, but that fight is kinda interesting, but we'll get to it when we get into it. So the chapter itself started off with Eida arriving at the village, and she's greeted by Shikamaru, Sai, and some fodder ninjas. And one thing that I think is pretty interesting here is that Shikamaru isn't affected by her ability per se. Like, he doesn't really show any signs that he's affected. Now, this could be that once you're affected before, you can't really be affected to that degree again. And he wasn't really affected to that degree initially, so you could say that his resilience, his mind is very strong even now. So he's now even more resilient to the ability since he's had experience with it. But Sai is completely gone, he's completely fallen into Eida's trap, and so are the other Jonins as well. And even though the spoilers kinda indicated that the randos, as in the random villagers, weren't affected, this chapter proved that they were affected because they literally showed that they were affected. But that aside, Eida seems to be kinda shy, and that is kinda implied by Daemon saying that she doesn't really like attention in some ways. And instead of like walking through the village because everybody's staring at Eida, she decides to fly away with Daemon. And she explains that she knows where Boruto and Kawaki are currently, so she's just gonna fly over there instead of walking through the crowd. And she also explains to Shikamaru that she has accepted his cohabitation mission because she saw it with the Senringan and she could hear everything, so he doesn't need to re-explain anything to her. So another thing to take note here is that Shikamaru is very surprised that she has the ability to fly, and then Amado says something very interesting. Amado says that it's not an uncommon feat. Flying is completely run-of-the-mill among the OTSUTSUKI lot. Now, the very interesting thing about this is how this entire sentence is phrased, right? We know there's theories out there saying that Eida is maybe OTSUTSUKI or maybe part OTSUTSUKI or created using the abilities of the OTSUTSUKI. And this is kind of somewhat confirming that theory, because based on how he structured the sentence, he's kind of implying that Eida is OTSUTSUKI, because he says that it's not an uncommon feat among the OTSUTSUKI. Why would he need to say that in response to Eida being able to fly? It's not like Shikamaru compared her to the OTSUTSUKI. He's the one saying that it's not an uncommon feat among the OTSUTSUKI. But why would he need to mention the OTSUTSUKI in regards to Eida's ability to fly, right? It's kind of implying that Eida is a part of this OTSUTSUKI lot that he's referring to. So this could be indirect confirmation that Eida is in fact OTSUTSUKI. He also said that even Boruto and Kawaki may even start zipping around anytime soon, which again, Boruto and Kawaki are 100% OTSUTSUKI per code statement. So it could be that Boruto is OTSUTSUKI so he can fly, Kawaki is OTSUTSUKI so he can fly, and Eida is also OTSUTSUKI so she can fly. Now, I don't know if this means that Eida herself is like a full-fledged OTSUTSUKI, as in like a natural born OTSUTSUKI. It could be that she's just a cyborg created using the genetics of the OTSUTSUKI. So similar to how Boruto being overridden by the DNA of Momoshiki OTSUTSUKI now being able to fly, Eida being created using the genetics of an OTSUTSUKI gives her the ability to fly as well. I think that's more where they're going with it. But we skip over to Boruto and we see that they're in this nice little home in the outskirts of the village, and Eida then arrives by flying in. But before Eida arrives, we get this nice little scene between Sarada and Mitsuki. So Sarada and Mitsuki, they're there, but they're in a separate home like a few meters away from Boruto's dwelling. So they're not in the same exact like building and stuff. It's a separate building, but they can visibly see Boruto's home. But based on the size of Eida when she arrived, she was very small when Sarada was looking at her from their distance, from their home. This implies that there's a great distance in between the home of Boruto and the home of Sarada, since Eida was so small. Because you know, the farther you are away, the smaller someone looks. And Sarada is kind of worried about the entire situation, about keeping watch on Eida when she has the Senringan and able to know everything and see everything. So she's kind of like worried about the entire situation. And then we skip over to Boruto and Kawaki. They're having this argument because Kawaki's kind of being a little brattish, because Boruto's trying to look at it from the bright side. They have this nice little hope, they're just gonna be nice to Eida and stuff, but Kawaki's kind of being a brat and he's saying, oh, you can't be happy in this situation, why are you being happy? Boruto's like, yo bro, we need to be very friendly with Eida for this thing to work, and for that to work we need to be friendly with each other. You can't just be a brood, you know? So I actually agree with Boruto with his stance on the matter. But then we move back over to Mitsuki and Sarada, and then we see Ino Inojin, Shikadai, and Chocho arrive, and they're just kind of inquisitive. They like to see what's going on here and shit. But then Eida suddenly flies in, and the very interesting thing about this entire interaction is that Eida is a good distance away, right? As I explained earlier, she's very small per Sarada's vision, so she's very far away. So this kind of gives us like an idea on the range of her abilities. Like you can be like meters away and she can still affect you. Now the funny thing about this is that Inojin was affected, Chocho was affected, and even Mitsuki was affected, but Sarada and Shikadai wasn't. Now what I found interesting is that Shikadai wasn't affected, right? Because Shikadai said that he couldn't see her, and then they kind of inferred that the reason why he wasn't affected is because he didn't get to see Eida, and that's because Mitsuki was standing in front of him. But the strange thing about that is that Sarada did see Eida, but she wasn't affected. Now this could imply that you need to look her directly in the eyes, as in like look on her face and stuff, and maybe Sarada did it because she turned around, but Sarada definitely looked on Eida. She saw her arrive, right? So it couldn't just be that you need to directly look at Eida, or it could be that Sarada was affected but is very resilient, similar to Shikamaru, so she didn't show that she was affected. But the difference with her and Shikadai is that Shikadai legit did not see her, and they then implied that the reason why he wasn't affected is because he didn't see her. So it could be that you can be resilient to the ability, and that would prevent the effects of the ability as well. But you could also just not look on Eida and you won't be affected by the ability. So I think that's a pretty cool like weakness to the ability. But the funny thing about this is that Amado never mentioned that as a weakness, right? Because if it's just that you don't need to see her to not be affected, he would have relayed that to Naruto and Sasuke. Yo, close your eyes or something, you know? Activate Sage Mode, fight while blind, and you won't be affected. But maybe Amado doesn't know that that's a weakness, or maybe he does know and he's keeping that away from Naruto and Sasuke. And maybe Sarada will be the one to break that to them, and that will be a good way for them to take on Eida. We'll see. But a key thing to focus on here is that Mitsuki of all people was affected by this ability, and he said that, what is this emotion? I've never felt it before. And Sarada asked if he's okay, and he said maybe not, and we can see the blush on his face. So Mitsuki was definitely affected by Eida's ability. Now the thing about this is that this kind of dispels the theories around there saying that Mitsuki is half OTSUTSUKI, created using Toneri's DNA and all that jazz. It kind of dispels that theory per se. And I also made that theory, so I'm not like shitting on the theory itself. I also made multiple videos on the theory. Now even though the general sentiment around this entire chapter is going to be that Mitsuki is no longer OTSUTSUKI based on this revelation, you could also say that Mitsuki is still part OTSUTSUKI, still created using Toneri's DNA, but he's still affected. And the reason why that's the case is because he's not 100% OTSUTSUKI. Because you have to remember that it was in question whether or not Boruto and Kawaki would be affected when they were still 80%. Cole didn't say that they won't be affected for certain. He said that maybe, but maybe because they're partially OTSUTSUKI, they would still be affected, right? So that was a theory by Code and Eida that they would be affected when they were still partial OTSUTSUKI. But we have to remember Boruto and Kawaki are now 100% OTSUTSUKI per Code's and Momoshiki's statements, right? So this explains why they are not affected. But since Mitsuki is still partial OTSUTSUKI, we don't know whether it's 60%, 40%, 50%. This explains why he would still be affected. So I wouldn't say this theory is completely gone. Missy could still be affected by Eida and still be OTSUTSUKI, and it could just be that you need to be 100% in order to not be affected. So I think that's where they're going with it. Or you could say that Mitsuki is just hiding the fact that he's OTSUTSUKI and he's just pretending to be affected. You know, that's also a theory, but I think it's less likely than the theory that you just need to be 100%. I think that makes more sense. Now Sarada kind of made a statement. It's a very stupid statement really, because she said that maybe because we couldn't see her well, and she's saying that that's the reason why her and Shikadai weren't affected. But girl, you have the best eyes in the village, you know, but maybe she didn't have the Sharingan active and she uses glasses and shit, so maybe she can't see properly without the Sharingan, right? And Shikadai was behind Mitsuki, so you could really make the argument that she couldn't see her properly because of her bad eyesight, but maybe Inojin, Chocho, and Mitsuki could see her perfectly, so they were affected, you know. I guess you could say that. And another interesting thing to point out is that they weren't affected until Eida directly turned and looked directly at them. Because they were seeing Eida before, but they weren't showing effects. But they only started showing effects when Eida looked at them. So that's something interesting we could look into. But Eida finally moves into Boruto's building and she's greeted by Konohamaru, and he's completely destroyed by the ability. This dude falls down the stairs. Another L for Konohamaru, but what's to be expected at this point? Now, people might need some clarification on this scene because the spoilers kind of indicated something else. But when Eida activated her Senringan, she was actually viewing Sarada's situation, and she saw Moege, which is Konohamaru's childhood friend, arrive, and she said that, "Little Konohamaru, I hope you're doing fine." That's what Moege said, which is why Eida then says, "Little Konohamaru, eh?" Like she's responding to what Moege said, and then she said, "A childhood friend, question mark, how sweet." You know, she's referring to the relationship between Moege and Konohamaru. This doesn't imply that Eida knows Konohamaru from childhood, just to clarify. So this again shows that Eida is kinda shy, because like Boruto walks up to her and he's like saying, "Yo, come down, let's talk" and stuff, and she's not responding. She's kinda hiding behind the door. And then Daemon jumps on Boruto's back and starts to ride his back and shit, you know, saying that, "Yo, I'm Daemon, I'm the little brother, Boruto Uzumaki," whatever. It's kind of just introducing himself. But that's not all. He kind of challenges Kawaki to a fight. He's saying that, "Yo, come attack me, let me show you I'm number one" and shit, you know. The same shit he said to like, you know, Code, but in different words. And the funny thing is that Boruto and Kawaki had no idea that Daemon was coming, you know. Shikamaru never told them about Daemon, he only told them about Eida. So they're completely caught off guard by Daemon, and he just comes in, he kind of challenges Kawaki. Kawaki runs in and gets completely blown away by Daemon's reflection ability. Then Daemon opts off Boruto, because you have to remember, you need to be touching someone to reflect abilities or reflect attacks. And then he challenges Kawaki to a real fight, and then Kawaki uses his dojutsu to fire some rods at Daemon, which Daemon easily catches with his hands and his mouth. Then he just literally like speed blitz, and this is one of the worst like speed blitz I've ever seen in the history of Naruto. Like Kawaki literally did not know that Daemon was behind him. He was literally still looking forward, because per his vision, Daemon hasn't moved as yet, but Daemon is behind him already. Daemon just completely knocks him out with an easy kick. Boruto then charges in, he gets completely demolished by Daemon as well, and Daemon knocks him out with a simple punch behind the head. But one thing we need to take note of here, because people are saying that, "Oh, you know, Boruto and Kawaki, they're completely inferior," which I agree with. I do believe that they are completely inferior to Daemon, but we need to remember that they weren't in their most powerful state. They were still in base, even though Kawaki used his dojutsu once, but he turned it off afterwards. And Boruto literally didn't use karma or anything, right? So they were in base when they got demolished, so I don't think this is a commentary on their full abilities, you know, referring to their Borushiki states and Kawashiki states, because they didn't go into those forms, right? But I do believe that even if they did, they would still get demolished by Daemon, but that just didn't happen. Now, Boruto woke up to seeing like Kawaki laying in Eida's lap, and she's like petting down the back of his head and stuff. And then Daemon then explained to Boruto that the reason why he attacked them or challenged them to a fight is because he wanted to show them what would happen if they defied Eida. And then Kawaki kind of woke up to seeing himself in Eida's lap, and while Eida is kind of blushing looking at Kawaki, Kawaki is kind of giving her the death stare and shit, because he's very angry about what Daemon just did. Then I believe that Shikamaru kind of phoned in using the speakers in the wall, because I don't think this is Ino's ability, because I believe Eida and Daemon could hear Shikamaru talking, because it seems as if Boruto was talking out loud. So it could be that Shikamaru was talking through some speakers or through the phone or something. I don't know for sure. It could be that it was Ino's ability. But then Shikamaru then says to Amado that he needs to like tell them everything, no more secrets and all that jazz, and Naruto is also there waiting for the information. All in all, I think it was a good chapter. I think the information we got in this chapter was more like us like looking into past theories and getting like supplementary information to kind of dispel those theories or to kind of confirm those theories in regards to Eida being OTSUTSUKI or Mitsuki not being OTSUTSUKI, you know. Obviously it's just kind of a setup chapter for what's to come next, which I think is pretty cool. I have no problems or issues with setup chapters. I don't think we need to be fighting in every chapter, but the thing with Boruto is that it's monthly, so it's kind of really a strain on the audience to kind of just getting like recap chapters, setup chapters, and the next chapter is probably going to be another setup chapter because they're setting up a model relaying information to the characters. Now I do think next chapter is going to be really good, rich with new information as opposed to this one where we only got like confirmation for old information and theories and so on. But overall I think it was a really good chapter. Next chapter is going to be like a setup chapter as well. Then the chapter after that might be like some action and stuff. And we did get some action in this, but it's kind of just like Daemon playing around and stuff. It really wasn't anything like deep for the story, you know, or consequential for the story. But yeah, I give the chapter like an 8. It was pretty cool and all, you know, it's fine. Let's see what happens next. Let me know your comments or your thoughts in the comments down below. I don't know what's happening here. I guess I'm tired. But yeah, drop a like if you like the video, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.